So welcome everyone to this webinar, Avoiding the AI Content Trap. What is the AI Content Trap? Well, we'll get into that, so don't worry. First of all, let's do some quick introductions. So we are Stratton Craig. We are a content agency that apply the critical skill of storytelling to all manner of communication and stakeholder engagement challenges. Guided by data and insight, we develop brand language, content strategy, and copy, and create content that counts. We are also part of the Positive Change Group, which allows us to leverage a huge number of synergies across the entire stakeholder engagement ecosystem. So a little bit about me. My name is Colm. I've been a senior writer at Stratton Craig for 7 years, and for the last couple of years, I've been the AI lead. So what does that mean? That means I've been guiding the strategy around AI, training our people, testing tools, engaging with other stakeholders around our use of AI. And as part of that, I have a little AI task force that meets up every week or two to help guide the strategy at Stratton Craig, and my lovely co-presenter Elliot is a member of that task force.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Lovely to see you all. I'm Elliot. I'm one of the writers here at Stratton Craig. I've been here for about 4 years. I'll round up by a month. And as Colm explained, I've been a part of the Stratton Craig AI task force since its inception.
Perfect. So I want to start with a quick story. A couple of years ago, it was simpler times for Stratton Craig. We knew our market inside out, and our clients knew us inside out. And then a piece of technology, particularly ChatGPT, came out and kind of threw everything into question. And suddenly, those unique skills and hard-won expertise that were uniquely ours had been thrown into question, and potentially, a piece of technology could do the same work as us. So just like software engineers, designers, advertisers, and many others in the global economy, we had to make a choice. And that was, do we want to bury our head in the sand, or do we want to recognize this moment of change and get a little proactive? And I'm glad that we chose the second option, because today AI is everywhere. Content and marketing teams are under a huge amount of pressure to integrate this technology into their workflows and to show measurable results. But for many businesses, this is not simple, and it's actually proving to be quite a challenge. To get the real value out of AI, we need to understand exactly where it fits into content creation and existing content creation processes. And that is what we're going to cover in today's session. So we're going to look at the common pitfalls of AI-generated content. We're going to look at where AI thrives in the content creation process, and importantly, where it doesn't. And we're going to discuss some principles and steps for building smarter content creation workflows. So some admin before we get started. There will be a Q&A session at the end, and there is a Q&A box. So if you have any questions, please do pop a question in the box, and myself and Elliot will get to it at the end. Second piece of admin is that everything we talk about today will be part of the Keep It Real guide to AI-generated content. That will be launching next week, and as attendees of this webinar, you will be receiving a free copy in your inbox, so make sure to look out for that. Right, so before we get started, let's have a quick look at where we all are as a group. I've got 2 questions for you. I'm going to launch a poll now. The first is, how often are you currently using AI in your content creation processes? So you should see that. You have the options of every day. You focus on quantity over quality. Oh, wait, never mind. Oh, no. So every day, frequently, sometimes, or never. People seeing that quiz? Let's try that again. Let's start that again. Sorry, that was some technical results. So, Elliot, you seeing that quiz?
No, it's not popping up for me.
Okay, let me try and launch this again. Sorry, everyone. Technical relaunch poll. All right, so hopefully you see it now. So How frequently are you currently using AI in your content creation process? Every day, frequently, sometimes, or never? The results are coming in. Give you a couple of more seconds. All right, that'll do. A couple more answers coming in. Okay, so let's end that one, share the results. So, as you'll see, sometimes has come out on the top. There are a couple of key users who are using AI every day, and this results really do mirror what we see across organizations. There are a couple of people that have really adopted this technology and running with it, others who are using it frequently. Most people are kind of dabbling with it a little bit, failing to see really the results or failing to be able to integrate it truly into their workflows, and some have just never tried it. So, we're going to ask another quick question here. So question number two is for those who are using AI, what are your main concerns about it? So is it the accuracy of the outputs? Is it generic or off-brand tone of voice? Is it a lack of familiarity with AI and prompting? Or is it worries about privacy and data protection? Okay, see the results coming in there. So I'll just share the results of that. And very interestingly, the main result has been generic and off-brand tone of voice, which is perfect because we're going to show you in this session exactly how to, avoid that hopefully and put processes in place to make sure that AI is promoting your creativity and promoting your brand and enhancing those things rather than limiting them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. And that's enough of an introduction. So I'm going to hand over to Elliot now to set the scene on where we are currently.
Perfect. Thanks, Colm. So to better understand the AI content trap, we think it's worth looking at how businesses are using AI today. So it's clear that since AI shot to public prominence a couple of years ago, the potential use cases have been everywhere. They've been in all the headlines, and I think we're all very much aware of how AI could be used in the future, especially in a creative context. So transformative is the potential that a recent Gartner survey predicted that about 80% of creative roles will need to integrate AI in the next few years. And companies will need to think about the upskilling challenge that that presents today. But despite the transformative potential, a recent IBM survey of CEOs shows that only 25% of AI initiatives are delivering the expected return on investment, and only 16% have scaled enterprise-wide. So there's a clear disparity between what we all know AI could potentially do and transforming that into real life value that helps teams produce content quicker and more effectively. So what are some of the common challenges driving that disparity? Well, one is the pressure to do something. Businesses have forked out a lot of money on licenses for individuals or entire teams, and are expecting to create quick return on investment, but without the right coordination, direction, or resources at teams' disposal, that's becoming a real challenge. There's also the volume over value mindset. So AI is allowing teams to create a lot more content than they were ever able to do so before, but sometimes that comes at the expense of creating good value content that really engages your stakeholders and resonates with what they want to see. And then another challenge is experimentation without strategy. Without the right top-down direction or guardrails, teams can be experimenting with the vast array of different AI tools out there, which is making it harder to create consistent learnings between people, between teams, and it's making it harder to kind of really scale up the general skills that people need to get the best out of this technology. At the same time, a lot of businesses are trying to move too quickly. This opens the door to shadow AI use, where people use AI tools that aren't appropriate or suitable for certain tasks, particularly in a confidential context. And as we kind of saw in the poll results, without doing the groundwork of creating the right tone of voice, without engaging your customers and without knowing what your stakeholders want to see, too often businesses are being left with generic or off-tone content that just sounds like everyone else. And then, of course, finally, certain AI tools have different data protections and privacy rules, and that can open the door to legal, ethical, or compliance issues that can really undermine businesses. But the consequences of all of this are clear. The public is getting smarter at noticing when content has been uh, created using AI. In a recent Marketing Interactive survey, 50% of consumers can tell when content has been AI written, and worryingly for businesses, 52% disengage when they suspect it, showcasing really the point that without understanding AI and how to get the best out of it and how to use AI to sound unique and authoritative, you could actually be undermining your brand and your trust. So where does this leave us? This introduces the AI content trap because this leaves us with two potential options. On the one hand, businesses can continue to make more noise, but at the same time risk continuing to not create the right return on investment. Or with a smarter, more strategic use of AI that enhances human creativity, businesses can streamline certain key flows and produce content that really engages consumers and works hand in hand with your team's natural expertise.
So I think it's important to note here that the content trap that teams might be falling into is not one about rejecting AI. In fact, at Stratton Craig, we think that avoiding AI altogether would be a strategic mistake. But without proper planning, quality assurance, or governance, the use of AI can actually do more harm than good for your brand. And that's what we mean by the AI content trap. So let's talk about what that is because it's real. And in the rush to adopt AI, teams might be falling into it. So AI makes it easy to generate content and it's empowering more people to do so. And this is a good thing and it should be celebrated. Anyone on your team can now generate a blog, a LinkedIn post, or a product summary in seconds. But there is a catch. It's just as easy now to flood your channels with bland, unfocused content that confuses your audience and dilutes your brand voice. And I think everyone on this call would accept the idea that when it comes to content, more volume doesn't necessarily mean more impact. And I think when we think about what makes a piece of content stick, what makes it truly, truly stick and resonate and create an impact, it's not the speed that it was produced that is the main factor here. It's the clarity of the message, the strength of the insight, and the connection it makes with the audience. And while AI can help you with these things, it can't do any of them on its own. So the way that AI works makes it very well suited for some parts of the content creation process, but not well suited for others. And if companies are looking to create more content faster, they might begin using AI for tasks where it might actually have a negative impact. That's the trap. When you use AI to prioritize volume and speed without strategy or quality control, you risk losing the things that make your content great in the first place. There are a number of common pitfalls that AI-generated content falls into, and we'll probably all recognize these. Generic tone, just bland, interchangeable language that could come from any brand. And when you're in a competitive marketplace, not being able to stand out can have a real negative effect. Repetitive language, overuse of cliches, like in today's fast-paced technological landscape, cutting edge, empowering teams, or driving innovation. Again, it just makes you sound like anyone else. Cultural or brand mismatches. So this is inappropriate references or tone that just feel off and that can actually disengage your audience. And then, of course, there is the risk of stealing other people's content, getting yourself into a copyright infringement issue. So without human oversight, AI is likely to produce content that is technically fine, but strategically weak. So once more, the trap is not using AI. The trap is focusing on the wrong benefits of AI. The huge potential of this technology is that it doesn't just speed up your processes, it enhances them. And a properly AI-enabled content processes should be empowering your teams to create better content than they were before, not the same quality or worse quality at a faster rate or a higher volume. So with that in mind, let's look at exactly where AI can add value to the content process, content creation process, and importantly, where it can't.
Yeah, so it's important to I'd start to identify where the balance is. So what's AI great at to begin with? When you're preparing a white paper or a blog or any other piece of content that involves lots of data insights and involves lots of research, AI can really help digest some of that research. Rather than spending hours and hours and hours looking for particular stats, AI can produce really condensed um, overviews of research that allows you to potentially create a new angle for a white paper and identify an untapped need. After that, it can help structure some of that research into an outline, or it can start to provide a framework that writers can begin to produce the content in. It can even sometimes produce a first version, a very brief first version that your experts and technical leads can get to grips with and really put their spin on and provide some real authority to. And then once the human intervention has taken place, it can sometimes repurpose a blog into 3, 4, 5 different social media posts that can really drive traffic across all your different channels. So getting you from A to B and tasks that don't need as much strategic input, AI can help with. But at the same time, AI struggles with a lot too. And the big one is sounding authentic. It can AI can digest lots of research and it can mimic what's already on the internet, but creating that unique angle that reads well and engages an untapped need, it really struggles with. And only you, with your right tone of voice and your right messaging and your right strategic positioning, can make that happen. AI also doesn't have the decades of industry experience that many of us will have. They don't know, it doesn't know your customers as well as you do, and it doesn't know exactly what will resonate with them. So while AI can help produce lots of different types of content, um, whether it's the right piece of content with the right information in is a different question, and that leans very heavily on human expertise. Um, Tone of voice consistency. So you can sometimes hammer an AI tool into place in to use the right tone of voice on a certain piece of content, but when you're trying to repurpose that across different channels, AI simply doesn't know the why. So whether you need to use a more formal tone of voice or a more informal tone of voice is based on your understanding of your consumers. AI doesn't have the ability to ask why, so it can only take a guess. And that will always need overview and insight from a human expert. Um, and then finally, best practice. AI can spot certain grammatical mistakes, but when it's doing its research overviews, it could be producing research that was produced 10, 15 years ago, again, potentially undermining the piece of work, all of which means that human expertise and overview is always, always needed. So what can some of this look like in practice? So one of the biggest challenges that a lot of businesses face is producing an ESG report every year. Creating themes and topics that the ESG report needs to talk about can be a really arduous process. It can involve lots of rounds of feedback from lots of different stakeholders and lots of different interviews. But rather than having a writer go through every interview, every transcript, every different round of feedback, you can use AI to condense all of that information and to compare different documents to identify the key themes that are occurring in each one. That can give you a really good starting point for building a number of key themes that you can then use to feed into your ESG report. As mentioned, it can turn a blog into 4, 5, 6 different social media posts really quickly. And if you have had internally a policy update and you need to kind of embed that policy and update across different teams or across an entire enterprise, you can use AI to quickly process that new update and create a number of key frequently asked questions that can save your writer's time. But the key thing is that human oversight is always required. And so to round this section up, AI is very well suited to tasks that are research-based, structure-based, and can help solve certain bottlenecks quickly, but it's not for strategy, decision-making, or sign-off tasks.
And I think that point about AI not being involved in sign-off is absolutely key as we begin to look at how you actually build smarter AI-enabled workflows. AI should not be holding the pen or making any decisions whatsoever at any part of the content creation process. It is a tool to help you get to those decisions. It is not making those decisions. So, to avoid the AI content trap, you need more than just tools. You need processes that combine automation with human judgment. So if AI is bringing that automation, let's pause for a second and break down exactly what we mean by human judgment here. So first of all is skills, those skills around AI, such as prompt writing, literacy around tools, critical thinking, quality assurance, and security and data awareness. But just as important is confidence and understanding. So your teams need to know how to use AI safely and securely, and this needs to be backed up by policies, processes, and oversight. They need to have a knowledge of where AI should be used in the content creation process and where it shouldn't. So going back to what Elliot was saying earlier about where it can provide value and where it doesn't. And importantly, they need to access to support. They shouldn't be doing anything alone. They should be able to discuss their learnings, their fears, their failures, and they should have a forum to do that. So both of these things, though, require time. And for me personally, what separates the AI leaders from the rest of the pack and the AI super users from the rest of the workforce is time. Whether that's dedicated training or being allotted some set hours every week to experiment, businesses really need to allow people to give people time to explore, to break things, to fail, and to learn through experience. That is the key way to nurturing teams that can use AI safely as well as effectively. So, how do you create AI-enabled content workflows that allow people to use this technology in a way that amplifies creativity rather than reduces the need for it? And of course, this will look different for every business, but here are some core principles for when you start building your own AI-enabled workflows. So the first is human in the loop. You'll probably have heard this term when reading about AI. But basically, for content creation, what it means is that humans should always brief the tool, review the output, and shape the final message. AI is a first drafter, it is not the final author. At the very least, this means never publishing AI content unchecked, reviewing every output thoroughly for factual errors, hallucinations, inconsistencies with your tone, and outdated or misapplied references. You need to validate the source material. You need to check for tone of voice, and you need to maintain clear accountability and oversight over your team's use of AI. The second principle is governance and guardrails. So you need to have the right policies, processes, and resources in place to ensure safe, consistent, and strategic AI deployment. What this means in practice is number one, having clear use policies. You need to define what AI can and can't be used for in your organization. This might include rules for different kinds of content types, internal versus external, low risk versus high risk. And don't just write these rules, make sure everyone knows them, run training sessions, share use cases, and encourage people to ask questions. If you don't have a tone of voice for your brand, that is a good starting point as you can use that to make sure that your AI's outputs are less variable in tone and quality. You might want to create a prompt library of pre-approved and prompts that work that your team can just pick up and use instead of having to write their own. You need to educate your users on what data can be safely shared with AI tools. If you're looking to scale AI as a business, you really should be looking at enterprise grade tools that offer protections for confidential and regulated information. The key bit of information to look out for here is whether the model is trained on your data. If the model is trained on your data, that means the data that you input into that AI will influences in some way the answer that it gives to other users. If the model is not trained on your data, then that removes that risk and you can be much more confident putting in client information, private information about your business or whatever it might be. And importantly, you need to review and refine these regularly. AI is evolving at a crazy pace, and so should your governance, basically. You need to update your policies, prompts, and examples based on real usage and team feedback. The third principle is strategic oversight. It is really important to be intentional with your AI use. You need to define the role of AI clearly in your strategy. What is AI here to do? And I'm sorry to say, but using AI just because everyone else is not a good enough reason here. You need to decide where AI fits into your content creation process. Is it providing drafting support? Is it providing idea generation? Is it repurposing existing content? And you also need to decide where it doesn't fit. Strategy, final messaging, crisis comms. But importantly, you need to be transparent about your goals regarding AI and your responsibilities and the review processes. So you also need to set clear objectives for your AI use. You need to link your AI use to specific business outcomes. Are you looking for efficiency, consistency, scale? That is fine. Or are you looking to be able to take on new content challenges, produce new types of content, use better research in your as the basis of your content? And you want to avoid vague AI goals. As I said earlier, just trying to keep up is not a good enough goal here. Importantly, you need to keep people in control. AI is a tool, it is not a decision maker. So you need to make sure that humans are deciding how, when, and why AI is used in your content workflows. And an important one here is you need to involve senior stakeholders. A lot of organizations have key AI users that are actually not in the leadership. But leaders should champion responsible AI use. They shouldn't just be approving tools. Their visibility and support really does help embed the right behaviors across the team. Now, you might be asking, that's all well and good, Colm, but what does that actually look like in practice? Well, don't worry, we got you. Here is the five-step framework that you should be looking to implement when you setting up your own AI-enabled processes within content creation. So first of all, you need to identify relevant use cases. You can do this by mapping out your entire content production process to find the right areas for AI support. You're looking for bottlenecks. You're looking for inefficiencies. You're looking for parts of the process that take a long time. Those are key candidates for AI support. Next, you want to set up your guidelines and guardrails. You want to establish clear standards and ethical policies for the safe and legally compliant use of AI. Next, you want to test and train. We recommend implementing AI in a controlled environment. Start with the simpler tasks to help build confidence within your team and refine processes through trial and error. Next, you want to evaluate. Human oversight and quality assurance is essential for any use of AI. So make sure that you're getting your processes right and make sure that you're assessing your AI generated content against the right criteria. And next, you want to scale up and monitor. So after your initial successes, you can begin to scale up AI use while continually monitoring and sharing your knowledge and experiences. So the key thing here is that AI should be making your team smarter, not just faster, and especially not if that speed comes at the expense of quality and brand identity. So, Elliot, I think basically after all of that, our key takeaway really is that although AI is a very powerful tool, it is not a shortcut, and that the brands that succeed will be the ones that use AI to enhance creativity rather than replacing it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's it. So as we kind of get towards the end of this deck, I think that there are a few key takeaways that we really want to sort of leave with you. And I think one of the big ones is that AI is not a shortcut. It's not a replacement for creative work, and it's not a replacement for strategic work. The best way to get return on investment or to make AI work for you is to find the right ways of bringing AI into your content creation processes, identifying where the bottlenecks are, and then exploring how you can use AI to kind of speed up some of those some of those processes, while still combining that with the existing expertise that only human beings can have. So the real winners of AI are going to be the ones who use it to enhance creativity rather than replace it. In terms of sort of best practices, um, I think it goes probably without saying, but AI is not a decision maker. It doesn't know anywhere near as much as it sometimes comes across as doing. And so it's really not a replacement for sign off or decision making. Um, so that's a big one. I think secondly here, quality checks are absolutely essential, regardless of the task, regardless of whatever piece of content you're creating. Quality checks are essential for maintaining your brand voice, maintaining your brand quality, and making sure that you're not just sounding like everyone else. AI can only mimic what's already on the internet. Um, Immediately making that content your content is the quickest way of just not standing out at all. And then really importantly, teams need time to learn and innovate, grow their confidence and grow their skills. Um, Buying an AI license and expecting quick return on investment, skipping the preparation, skipping the guardrails, skipping the learning and the shared experiences that have to come with that, is not the right way of making AI work for you. People need time to grow their confidence and share learnings, and that's the best way of kind of upskilling AI skills. And then kind of on the strategy side of things, um, ultimately your content needs to be informed by the right strategy as well. And that's something that AI also can't do. Only a human with deep understanding of your sector, deep understanding of your stakeholders and your consumers knows what's going to resonate with them. And then finally, quality control does protect your brand, and that's a really, really important point.
Great. Thank you, Elliot. So there's one last final piece of the puzzle to tie up, and that is introducing the Keep It Real guide to AI and content. This will be launching next week. As I said, you will receive it in your inboxes, so please do take a look. It contains all of the information that we've talked about on this webinar, plus a little bit more. It is packed with practical tips, pitfalls to avoid, and frameworks you can utilize today. And it's all about helping getting you guys using AI as a creative partner, not a replacement for creativity. Okay, Elliot, are you ready for some
Let's
questions?
do it.
Let's do it. Hold on a second. So, um, can you share your favorite AI tools involved in content creation and what you use them for? Sure. So favorite tools. There's a Stratton Craig answer here, and then there's probably, a more personal answer for me and Elliot. So I'll start with the Stratton Craig piece. Early on, in the AI sort of boom when it was first coming out, we decided to go with a solution called Jasper AI. The reason why we chose Jasper, there were several reasons for that. One was that it was primarily built for content agencies. It had a lot of things like templates for different types of content, and we didn't end up using those, but we thought that would be a good starting point. It was also an enterprise grade solution, so it was very much that the case of we knew that the data that we put into Jasper wasn't going to be used to train the model, and we could be sure, we could be much more confident that there was enterprise grade security in place, and that we could put in confidential client information into Jasper in a way that didn't compromise the security of both us and our clients. So as time has gone on, sorry, we've slightly outgrown Jasper, I think. We were able to do a lot of the things with Jasper's templates on our own with our prompt building. So I think, we're going to be looking at moving to either the enterprise solutions for Claude or ChatGPT in the future. But Jasper is a great solution for anyone looking for a secure platform that is built around the needs of content agencies. And also the support that we've received from them has been fantastic. Elliot, on a personal level, have you got any, what's your favorite AI tool?
Yeah, I still use Jasper somewhat for a number of different creative writing tasks. I think it does its sort of default tone as such is um easier to work with than with some other different models. But of course, recently we've rolled out Copilot across the Positive Change group. And that's a really useful tool because so we use SharePoint, and as they're both kind of enabled with Microsoft, we're using Copilot more and more, and that kind of sits within SharePoint and across all of our different sort of storage and document sharing tools. And particularly, won't go too much into it, but as we sort of explore agents more, um, Copilot is, I think, quite a useful tool for that. Um, but yeah, I would say those for me are probably it's probably still Jasper and Copilot increasingly as well.
And just on a personal note for myself, I do believe that things like Perplexity are going to replace Google. As someone that uses AI pretty much every day, I don't go to Google anymore to search for information. I just ask Perplexity to do it. Whether that's right or wrong, we shall see, but it seems to give me the information and also importantly the sources. Okay, right, we've got quite a few questions here, so let's pick up the pace a bit, Elliot, and try and do two or three more before we call it a day. So the next one is from Dan Izzard. Hello, Dan. I recognize you from Practice Web Days. So what are the best ways to integrate brand guidelines and messaging across a team? So when we work with clients, we focus on a number of core documents. Basically, first of all, is you need to have a clear tone of voice strategy, and you need to be able to show how the tone of voice principles that you've adopted as an organization flex across different content. So typically, we do that with something called a messaging house. So this is really a document where people can go and see your tone of voice in action. You know, it provides like examples of social posts, examples of blogs, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the great thing about AI, and especially if you get an enterprise solution, so for example, if you have a ChatGPT workplace where all of your users are, running off the same license, you can just put these documents into AI and commit them to memory. And that's a much simpler way to get AI to start producing consistent output straight away. The other way is slightly, if you're not doing that, then basically you need to make sure that you're including all of that information in every prompt. And that's just a much more laborious and time-consuming task. So yeah, make sure that you're getting your brand guidelines, your tone of voice guidelines, any examples. AI loves examples. One way to make your prompts instantly better is to include an example of what you want. I found that to be really, really useful. And obviously, you can just feed them into the AI as memory. That has different names and different solutions. For example, in Jasper, that's called the knowledge base. In ChatGPT, it's called the memories. And I can't really remember what it's called in Claude. But thank you, Dan. Okay, so the next question is, how can you go about sharing best practice around AI without shaming or inadvertently encouraging people to use it secretly? Do you want to take that one on, Elliot?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because I think there's a real cultural piece to this, and I think that AI has evolved so quickly, and I think it's completely natural that across a team, across a business, there's going to be a sort of an inconsistent level of familiarity with it. I think something that worked for us, kind of in the early stages of the AI task force, was that we had time basically set aside every week to a couple of hours basically to really boost our familiarity with AI and really kind of just spend a lot of time testing different prompts, identifying where kind of a certain prompt could sort of streamline some sort of laborious tasks. Um, but I think it's sort of yeah, I think it kind of touches on business culture as well. And I think it's about sort of creating an open space where there is no failure, getting people together and saying, this is something that we kind of want to use in specific places, doing all the work that we've kind of elaborated on earlier in this webinar, um, and really just creating that culture, inclusive culture where everyone's kind of open to trying and trialing and making lots of mistakes and working out what works and what doesn't. We also have kind of, on things like Slack, we have kind of a dedicated channel for sort of AI, people who use AI very frequently to kind of share advice. We have a real kind of really open sort of door as such on all of these things. And I think that's a really, really good way of kind of boosting that confidence and just sort of gradually upskilling. Because the rate of evolution that AI is going at, um, even people that are really familiar with AI are having to learn new things as it's going. So it's really there is no failure, I think. And yeah, so I think there's for me, I'd probably say there's like a good cultural piece to touch on there. Does that sort of resonate with you as well, Colm?
Yeah, and I think the really important thing, just to go off what Elliot was saying, is that if you follow the steps that we've outlined in this webinar, the beginning steps of setting the policies up, having a clear idea of what you're trying to do with AI, making sure people are educated around data security and some of the risks, you create a much safer space for people to experiment. I think a lot of companies are falling into the trap of just letting people loose and then dealing with the problems as they approach. But if you set up the environment first, then you have a safe place for people to break things, for people to fail, for people to learn. And I think that is really, really important. I think we'll have one more question.
I think there's a good question here, Colm, about prompting, and it's can you give some examples of strong prompt frameworks to follow to give quality outputs? I think that's a good question because I think prompting is obviously absolutely, it is the key to getting AI to work. But prompting itself, I think, is quite a misunderstood um, science and an art. Um, I think when I think when most people kind of look at AI for the first time, you sort of put in like a quick sentence and say, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Can you create the output? And then it creates sort of quite a generic piece, and it's rarely sort of satisfactory. So I think, as Cole mentioned in the last answer, I think it was, different tools do it differently. But for example, with Jasper, you kind of have knowledge bases, and those are places where you can store a lot of really, really detailed prompts that your entire team can use. And when I say detailed prompts, I mean some of the prompts that we have, the templates that we have, are sometimes like 1,000 words, I think, Colm, that really, really, really thorough, kind of an understanding of kind of beginning with like context, um, the task itself, a step-by-step guideline on how to approach writing a social media post, and then at the bottom, 1 to 2 examples of social media posts that worked, so that the model can kind of combine all of that and then see examples of what it is you're looking for. Um, and so with the knowledge bases, you can just kind of tick that prompt, get that working. And so with really minimal a kind of interaction, teams, if even if they're not very, very confident with AI, can really quickly just start using these default prompts to create a social media post if needs be. I suppose kind of the analogy we've always used is to think of AI as an intern. I think we all love our interns. I've been one myself, but we're obviously, they need hand holding, and it's very much about kind of reducing the margin of error as such. So really thorough prompts that leave as little as possible to chance. I think that's a really, really good way of doing it, I think. And then there, depending on the model, you can then share those across the team, and that can, in turn boost familiarity as well.
Yeah, so just to add quickly on what Elliot was saying, I think the thinking of AI as an intern is absolutely key. You wouldn't just say to an intern, write me a blog on quantum physics. There would be you'd have to explain the process a little bit more. And also, perhaps the top tip for anyone that is worried about prompt building, you can just get AI to do it, right? So go into your AI and say, you are an expert prompt engineer. You are helping me make a prompt to do X, Y, Z. Lay out the process and then get AI to have a first go for you, and then you can refine it based on that. But thank you so much, everyone. We have run out of time. I really hope you found that informative. Um, if I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions. There were just so many. But yeah, look out for your Keep It Real guide to AI content coming into your inboxes early next week. It's a great piece of content. Me and Elliot both involved in writing it, so we're obviously biased. But yes, thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.